Lance.
How are you?
Good. Thanks for stopping by Coffee and Conversations. I just want to take a little time to introduce you to everybody. I remember you at Westover, but I don't know if everybody will. So Lance Cox, and you have served with the police for 30 years, you just said?
Since 1996.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for all of that, because I know that's a lot. It's a full-time job that never stops, like we were just talking about. And you were the police here at Westover for a while.
Yes, ma'am. I was over the law enforcement contract here. So I scheduled most of the officers that you guys see at your services.
And then just recently, you are the Austin ISD police officer. So you're kind of over all of that.
I've been with Austin ISD the entire time.
Oh, okay.
So we had we have an officer that was a member here, and they reached out to him, and they were looking for law enforcement officers to work on Sundays. And this was back probably 2012, 2013, somewhere in that range. He reached out to me, and then I took over the contract here, scheduled the officers, made sure that they were here on the Sundays and everything. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for doing that again. And now that you're with the schools, you've been with that for a year, 2 years?
No, I've been there the entire time.
Oh, the entire time. Okay.
Years.
I got confused. Okay.
I can break it down for you if you want me to.
Yeah,
because I work in this area. So when I first started in 96, I was a school resource officer at Murchison, right down the road. And from there, I moved over to Anderson, which is right across the street. Yeah. So I'm very familiar with Westover, and Westover and Anderson have always been great community partners, even when I worked there, and this was early 2000s. So from Anderson, I promoted into our investigations division, became a detective. I went to a sergeant from there, a lieutenant, and now I'm assistant chief.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you started doing being a police officer, how did you get called into that?
The real story, and I'm a very, I hate the word nosy, right? But I like to be in the know.
Okay.
And I had friends that were police officers, and I didn't want to do the same thing every day. I didn't want to go sit at a desk job and file the same papers and, just the monotony of, the same thing over and over every day. I did a couple of ride-alongs, and I loved it because you're in the same vehicle every day, but every call in that 8-hour shift is different. And very rarely do you see the same people twice, right? So, but there's also a problem-solving aspect to that, right? I get to show up and help you with your problem. There's a lot of satisfaction in that. So I enjoyed that piece of it. Originally, before I went to work for the school district, I had applied with the Austin Police Department, the city police department, and they put on a hiring freeze. This was in 1995. They weren't hiring officers for 2 years. So I put myself through an academy. There's a regional academy in Austin. I self-sponsored, which I paid for everything. And when I got out, I knew one of the sergeants that worked for AISD, and he said, "Hey, why don't you apply with us?" I did. I got hired, and I've been there ever since. I mean, I love it.
What's your favorite thing about working with AISD?
So my favorite thing is being able to work with the kids and give back to the community in that aspect, because I always tell people, kids appreciate what you do. Right? As a law enforcement officer, adults expect you to show up and solve their problems. Kids appreciate it when you do. There's more appreciation for what you do when they have a problem and you come in and can help them work through that, or help them and their parents work through that situation. There's a lot of satisfaction in that piece of the job.
What has been, I'm sure there's a lot of these, but the most challenging thing?
That is a tough question.
Yeah.
I mean, showing up for work every day and not knowing what's next is probably the toughest aspect of it, because you can't prepare for it, right? You can't prepare for, what you may face when you walk through those doors as a uniformed officer, or as you're driving down the street as a uniformed officer. You don't know. And when you get up in the morning and you get dressed and you leave your house, you have to literally prepare yourself for anything. We train for a lot of things. And the one thing that they always tell us in law enforcement is if something happens, you fall back on your training. Well, hopefully we train for the right thing, right? And I think that's a tough piece of it. And I relate it to, my father-in-law is a CPA. He went to work every day and he sat down and he crunched numbers for a major corporation. He knew exactly what he was going to do tomorrow when he got to work. I don't. So I think that's one of the toughest aspects of it is not knowing what you're walking into day to day.
Yeah. How can families, because that is very challenging, be a support to police officers that are in schools and just everywhere?
I think the biggest thing that we as law enforcement appreciate is just the positive acknowledgement. Like we don't want to be seen as the people that just show up when you have an emergency, right? We do, but I'm the same person as you are. I go home to a house full of kids every night, right? And I put on my father hat and I deal with that until the next day when I get dressed and come back to work. And having that positive acknowledgement from the community, hey, how are you? How's your day? Is there anything that we can help you with? That's a big piece of helping keep our mental health up during the day is because we deal with so much negativity. When you run across someone that, ask about you, how are you doing? How's your day been? It really helps boost that.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, just acknowledging you that you're there. How's your day? That you're a real human too.
Because most people, when they see you, they say, "What's wrong?"
Yeah,
nothing's wrong.
I'm just here.
I'm just here
doing my job. Yeah. What can families what resources are there for families out there that I just don't even know this? That in the school district, just with regular police stations, just
so as school resource officers, we try to be the resource, right? And I mean, that's the meat of our name. Our officers on campus serve families, students, staff in every capacity, right? If there's, and the biggest piece right now that we try and serve is the mental health aspect, whether it's the students, a staff member, a family member. I think our agency is up to 104 officers right now. All of our officers are mental health certified.
That's amazing.
And we go through countless hours of mental health training every year just to keep that up. To be able to provide those in-between services to the students or the parents or the staff, to be able to facilitate getting them, connected with someone who can help them more than we can. Making sure that our officers understand and recognize the signs of someone who might be in crisis, just so we can be there to provide the helping hand to them. They did nothing wrong. Excuse me. But we have the resources available to us, and we are connected to the resources enough where if you are in crisis or you need help, then we have the ability to get you there and to get you connected with the right folks. Things that people don't understand is that we have a fully dedicated CIT unit, which are mental health officers. We have 5 of them and a supervisor that are dedicated to mental health service calls every day. Right within our agency, we're the only school district police department in the state of Texas that has a dedicated mental health unit.
Oh wow!
And we actually we've trained hundreds of other officers across the state just from the officers within our unit. Where we're holding a big training session this summer, 3 of them actually, to train mental health officers to go back out to their community, do the same thing that we're doing. So we put a lot of time and effort into our mental health services. And I think that's one of the biggest resources that we offer families within the district or anyone that we come in contact with.
Let's say there is a kid struggling with mental health. Is it best to reach out to a counselor, or if the parent wanted to come to the police officer, what's the best route for them to do that, to get mental health services?
Whoever they feel comfortable talking to, right? I would never want to tell them you need to go to this person versus this person, right?
Yeah.
Anyone in need of mental health services, if you contact anyone on campus and say, hey, I think my kid is struggling with this, it's obviously something that counseling can help them with.
Yeah.
If it's something beyond the the school counselor. The district does have licensed mental health professionals that are assigned to each to groups of campuses. We have an LMHP assigned to our unit, but whoever they feel the most comfortable talking to is who I would start with, because sometimes there's a stigma around that, right? And people, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to be judged. Well, we're not going to judge you, right? If you're having an issue and you feel like you want to talk to the police about it, we're 100% open to it. Come find us, right? And we will get you. We will make sure that you sit down with the right people that are going to help you through that situation. If it's a student, if it's a parent, we don't discriminate on who we help. If you don't know where to go, you can always come to one of us and we'll get you to the right place.
Is that, I'm assuming, elementary up through high school kind of
all
thing?
The way.
Okay. And if it would be like the same scenario, if my kid had a friend that was struggling with something like that, then they could.
And a lot of times that's how we get our reports.
Yeah.
Right? Is my kid has a friend who is struggling and they came to me and told me. And then as long as the information gets to us, it doesn't matter how.
Okay.
It's something that we always involve the parents in. We want to talk to the student to make sure that everyone that has something to do in that child's life is aware of what's happening, because at the end of the day, we're not with them once they leave the school. And we want to make sure that the parents have the resources or their caregiver has the resource, all the resources available to them to get them the help that they need. Okay.
Well, that is amazing that y'all do that, because we are in Leander ISD, and I'm sure they have something like that too.
They do.
Yeah.
Right now, Leander ISD is in the process of standing up their own police department, just like us.
Yes, I just heard that. Yeah.
But they're not there yet. But they do have a great counseling corps up there. They do have licensed mental health professionals that work for the district. I know a bunch of administrators up there that came from Austin. But any school district, right? The majority of their focus is the well-being of their kids, their students, their staff, their parents, everybody. If a student is struggling, regardless of where they're at, right? I would start with the counselor. If they can't help you, you can always go to the officer. Even city police departments, and I think some parts of Cedar Park handle some of the Leander schools. Some parts of Leander ISD or Leander PD handle some of the schools. But those officers are connected to resources as well. And eventually they can get you to the right place.
Yeah. Well, what has been your biggest joy in your job so far?
Oh, my biggest joy, and I've been in this. So when I started, I was fortunate enough. I started at Murchison Middle School in '96, and I worked there until 2000.
Okay.
Then I moved on to Anderson. So I got to move with the kids that I started with. So I had all of them through middle school and high school. So 7 or 8 years, right? I went with the same kids and families. And to this day, I'm great friends with a lot of their parents. Most of them are all adults now. They're in their 40s, right? And they see me at HEB and they're like, Officer Cox. So I was able to build that relationship with that group of people. And that's the opportunity that we have as school district police officers. We get to build those relationships from the ground up with the kids, because eventually they're going to become productive citizens, right?
Yeah.
And we've already bridged that gap between law enforcement and them. And we've set the tone on the image that we have with them. And we hope that they take that with them as they grow and become productive citizens. To me, that's been the biggest piece of this, is just the impact that we get to make on the kids. There's always a challenge between police officers and firefighters. Kids are like, you both got a bunch of lights. But when you have kids connect you to them, like, that's my officer, right? And I always tell people, that was my biggest compliment. I knew that I was doing something right when you run into kids and they tell your parents, that's my officer. Not the officer at my school, right? But that's my officer. Then you've done something right in that relationship between you and that student body.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest, I mean, regardless of 5 years, 10 years, 30 years, that's still the biggest piece. 2 weeks ago, we had a guy that was coming to apply for our agency, and he saw me on the way out, and he said, "Hey, sir, do you remember me?" And I said, "I don't." And he said, "You were my officer at Murchison 28 years ago." Right. And I said, "Wow, this is a full circle moment. Like, now you may come to work for me, but I was, your officer back then." And, I didn't remember him, but he remembered me. So there was some positive interaction at some point that made me stick out in his mind. And, I was young. I was 24 years old when I started. So I was only 12 years older than some of these kids in middle school.
Yeah.
So, it may have been a little easier to build that relationship, but every officer that we have, we always want them to focus on that relationship building piece. And that's been the biggest joy for me through all these years, because I still see it. I still see the relationships that I built with those kids as adults now.
That's really sweet. And it's all about relationships.
It
and
is.
that's really sweet that they see the positive of the police officer.
There's a
and
lot
law
of negatives
enforcement.
too, but
we
focus on the positive.
Yeah, there's so much positive. Well, Lance, thank you so much for stopping by and giving us some of your time. I know you're really busy.
I appreciate it. I appreciate being here.
Thanks.
Yeah.